Americans love crossovers. That should be obvious. You see them all over the road. But the actual compact crossover segment is fairly new. It's only about 25 years old. And the fact that the compact crossover segment exists comes down to 3 vehicles. One was the Subaru Forester, the second is the Toyota RAV4, and the third, the Honda CR-V.
Behind us here that we're testing today, we've got the 2023 Toyota RAV4 Limited, which is the top trim, and the 2023 Honda CR-V Sport, which is 1 trim level below the EXL.
Yeah, it's not like we're comparing apples with oranges. We're comparing apples with apples, but one's a Macintosh and the other's a Royal Gala.
Why don't we take them both for a test drive?
Excellent idea.
So Brian, now that we're in these 2 cars, I'm in the CR-V, you're in the RAV4. What are your first impressions of them?
Well, I'm in the RAV4 Limited. Price tag $43,750. And I'd have to say I'm getting a very well-contented crossover, but I'm not getting necessarily a luxurious one. And I find that a little bit, I'm not sure if it should be shocking or disappointing that I don't have a grander sense of luxury. You know, 40,000 bucks plus. I thought I would feel that I'm getting a lot of value for the money.
Yeah, I get that. I think in this one we're 1 trim level below the top trim, and it feels even a little less. It's got less features than the RAV4. That said, it is a couple $1,000s less than the RAV4 because you're in the top trim, I'm in one below. I agree with what you're saying. There's not a whole lot in it for a little over $40,000.
I know, the fact that you have to go to the top trim level to get features such as embedded navigation or front and rear parking sensors, items like that, a passenger seat that's powered. I find that disappointing.
Especially considering that the CR-V is all new for 2023 in its 6th generation. You'd think that it'd have a couple more updates than, you know, where we're at right now.
You know, I checked the specs on both of these vehicles. They are exceedingly well matched, size-wise and power-wise. Of course, the biggest difference is that the RAV4 is powered by a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder, normally aspirated, whereas the CR-V is a 1.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder. But they make very similar power, horsepower and torque figures.
But what about the drive?
Both vehicles drive very well. I'm going to give the nod to the CR-V. The steering in the RAV4 is a little heavy, a little, I'm going to say remote, but it's not bad. I mean, there is no sporting intention for either vehicle. They're mainstream crossovers, family-oriented, 5-seaters. Would I like to see a little more sport? Well, yeah, of course. But I really can't complain.
I agree. I mean, I thought they would be a little bit more similar in the driving sense, though. When I got into the CR-V, it's a really smooth drive. It picks up really nicely. The RAV4, we talked about this before, it's a little bit louder, but also I felt like picking up, it felt not just heavy, but sort of like it was struggling. The RAV4 almost feels like if you push on the accelerator really hard, it almost feels like you still have the emergency brake on, like it's really struggling to move.
In terms of acceleration, they're both about the same. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in anywhere from 8.5 to 8.8 seconds. It depends whose figures you want to use. The thing I found specifically annoying about the RAV4 is that the engine it's not just loud, it's harsh when you use the accelerator. When you need hard acceleration, like say, merging onto a highway or trying to pass a transport vehicle, something like that. So the RAV4, as I said, is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, 203 horsepower. The CR-V puts out 190 horsepower. CR-V's a little bit heavier, not a lot, but the big thing is that it makes its power at a much lower RPM, 1500 RPM versus I think the RAV4's maximum torque is reached at 5,000 if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, let's start on some of the interior stuff. I find the driver's seat to be a little bit more comfier in the CR-V. I don't know how you feel.
I found the seats in the RAV4 equally comfortable. I mean, I'm reasonably tall, I have very long legs, I have plenty of leg room, I have plenty of headroom. Yes, the CR-V gives you a little more rear room. It gives you a lot more cargo capacity. I think that's a function of the 2023 model's increased wheelbase.
And in that sense, I can really appreciate that, because when trying to fit a few car seats in here, at like every little centimeter counts, whether it's, you know, hip room, shoulder room, leg room, all of that counts when the kids are fighting each other.
Yeah, I can understand. In your position, absolutely. But I have no complaints about the interior quality of the RAV4. I mean, it's a little stark in terms of color choice. I mean, you got black and you have black. It's a bit gothic for my liking. The CR-V, the interior is still pretty black, but you know, there's more shiny bits.
It has that honeycomb thing over the vents, but I don't really know if it adds much to the design of the vehicle. When it comes to the infotainment, the CR-V has a pretty small screen. In here it's the 7 inches, but if you move up to the EXL trim, then you get 9 inches. However, in the RAV4, you've got 10.5, and it makes a huge difference when you're connecting to CarPlay or Android Auto, which in this trim, in the CR-V, it doesn't come with wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. You have to plug in, and the wires are sort of just hanging around, whereas recently when I drove the Odyssey, they had the wire sort of tucked into this center console right here. So that was nice, like you could hide everything. But in here, everything's out in the open, and you need a wire unless you bump up again to that top trim in the CR-V, in which case you get a wireless charger and you can wirelessly connect to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I also think the big screen in the RAV4 might make some people really happy, because generally when you have a bigger screen you can see more content, but what the RAV4 does is keeps the exact same amount of content that you would see in the CR-V, but all the icons are bigger. So you're not trying to push a tiny little button with your finger while you're driving. You've got more space to play around with it.
I just like the fact that with the wireless charging, it just doesn't junk up the center console. That's a big thing for me. I like a tidy center console. I don't like wires hanging around. And that's why I like the fact that the RAV4 came with embedded navigation. You know, having to pair your phone using Waze or Google Maps, whatever. I like embedded navigation. Maybe I'm old school.
Maybe you are, but that's okay.
Thank you. You're very kind.
Very kind.
Fuel economy is virtually the same with both vehicles. Combined is 8.4 liters per 100K. The RAV4 is a little better on the highway, the CR-V a little better in the city, but overall, evenly matched, at least according to NRCan.
Yeah, and I think it sort of matches up in observed numbers as well, because I drove the RAV4 for a little bit longer, and I guess because I do mostly city driving, I was seeing numbers just above 9, whereas in here I'm seeing 8.8 right now. So I guess the CR-V had a little more highway driving being done than the RAV4, so that makes sense.
Yeah. The biggest thing with the CR-V, and I've mentioned this to you before, is that as new as it is, It's a lot like the predecessor. Honda did not move the needle all that far. These are the two top-selling compact crossovers in Canada. The RAV4 is the number one, the CR-V is number two. I thought the CR-V would have more going for it. I think, you know, within a couple of years, it's going to be very outdated. The competition will have caught up and surpassed it.
Well, the competition sort of has, which we also talked about before when we were talking about the CX-5 and the CX-50, and they've got a lot more modern technology. They're a lot more efficient. So I don't know, this update should have brought it up to speed, but you're right, it didn't really move the needle.
Yeah, I mean, you know, disappointment notwithstanding, the RAV4 is an older vehicle, the CR-V is newer. It does what it's supposed to do.
And at least they both still incorporate buttons as opposed to having a whole ton of stuff on a touchscreen.
Yeah, I like that. I'm a button guy.
Well, now that we're back from our test drive, how did you like the two SUVs?
Both are very middle of the road mainstream.
Yeah.
Neither of them really are exciting vehicles to drive. Content-wise, size-wise, they're very close, but in the end, I reluctantly give my vote to the Honda CR-V. And I say reluctantly because I don't think it moved the needle that far from the old model.
I agree. The CR-V for me was a smoother ride, but I do think that if I didn't drive them right back to back, the Toyota RAV4 had a bit more content inside, a bit more features, and I probably would have chosen the RAV4, but back to back, it's a CR-V for me for this comparison.
For Driving.ca, I'm Brian Harper.
And I'm Renita Narine. For more SUV reviews and comparisons, check us out on Driving.ca or follow us on Instagram and Twitter.